Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. Back with another Big 12 team preview here. We've got the West Virginia Mountaineers under first-year head coach Ross Hodge coming up from North Texas. Before we do dive in to their analysis, if you are liking our content, please go ahead and like and subscribe. We do appreciate all of your support. But diving in, taking a look at this offensive unit first. Vastly different roster, of course, complete roster turnover after the exit of Darian DeVries to Indiana. So what strengths do you see in this offensive team?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's not going to be a pretty offense to watch. And if you watch the North Texas offense the last couple of years, it's really a grit and grind kind of offense, like looking to assert their physicality edge. And I think they have a physicality edge in a lot of games that they're going to play this year. It's going to lead to solid offensive rebounding numbers. I think it starts with a guy like Harlan Obioha, who is coming from UNC Wilmington. He had a 14.9% offensive rebound rate. He's just a massive human that's able to – he's pretty impossible to clear out when he's in the lane. He's 280 pounds. He's listed at 280. I'm willing to bet he's a little bit heavier than that. He's going to be able to clear some space when he's on the interior. I don't think he sees like a massive minute share due to like some defensive concerns and like probably stamina concerns also. Like he's probably a 20-minute per game guy, and he's going to have to split with – there's really not another true big man on this roster. So I think it's going to come down to like Brennan Lorian and Jackson Fields kind of manning the front court together. And I think that'll be good enough. I think both of those guys get on the glass at a decent level as well. Lorian 8.2, Jackson Fields 9.3% offensive rebound rate. And I think Chance Moore on the wing is going to provide some value. He's a good athlete on the wing that likes to attack the glass a little bit. And then one final strength that I think is like there's some perimeter shot creation upside with Honor Huff and Trayson Eaglestaff. They're both super talented, and they were, not the engines of their offense. Like particularly Huff wasn't like an engine. The Eaglestaff was more so, but I do think they have real shooting talent on and off the ball. Huff shot at 42% on 8.2 attempts per game at Chattanooga last year. Eaglestaff was 36% on 7 attempts per game, but that was with a high usage of it coming off the dribble and contested. And when Eaglestaff went on a heater last year, he looked like one of the best players in the country. Just a matter of how that's going to translate to, playing more athletic defenses in the Big 12. So we'll see what it looks like. The on-ball creation is a concern. We can talk about that in a second, but I do like some of the upside pieces. I like some of the shooting on this roster, like Ugasuk and Forsyth can provide some off-ball shooting for those scramble threes off of offensive rebounds. I think that's how they're going to create a lot of their values through the extras and just through grinding games out.
Yeah, I'll get to my main concern, which is like the on-ball creation here in a minute, particularly the depth. But I do think there is some like shooting upside, particularly even in the front court. I think a guy like Brennan Lorian, last year we saw him kind of take a leap as a shooter, still very, very low volume, 11 for 22 or 11 for 23, whatever it was. But it tells me that there is some more there, I think. And then a guy like you mentioned, Jackson Fields coming over from Troy, career 34% three-point shooter on 132 attempts last year, most he's ever taken. He was 21 for 59. So I think there is some upside even in the front court to space the floor. Obviously, Obioha, that is not a strength of his. He will not be spacing the floor at all, considering he took his first 3 threes ever last year at UNC Wilmington. But, my main concern to kind of go back to that and shift to weaknesses, I am worried about like the actual creation of offense out of their on-ball creators and the depth of that, right? Like Honor Huff, only an 11% assist rate while he can like get his own shot. I worry about his ability to generate shots for others. Then you have like guys like you mentioned, Chance Moore, not a guy that's going to create offense for others. Ugasuk coming over from South Carolina, certainly not creating offense for others. While he's a talented shooter, he's primarily going to be off the ball at all times. So I just worry about, what they have in terms of on-ball talent to generate offense for others, right? We're a little bit higher maybe on some of their shooting pieces, but it doesn't do you a lot of good if like your guys that are on the ball are only going to be generating offense for themselves, right? Like Trayson Eaglestaff, who, I'm not really sure how he's going to really translate to the Big 12. And he's a 15% assist rate guy. I think he's, again, a guy who's been more searching for his own shot. Now, him and Honor Huff are going to be more responsible for generating offense for others. And I'm just not that high on that trait in either of their games.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. That was my main concern, is the on-ball creation. And I just kind of like asked myself the question. I was like, is this team talented enough on the offensive end to compete in this league? I think like you have good shooters, you have good off-ball shooters, but if nobody is creating those looks, you're not going to be efficient. Like Honor Huff is consistently taking contested threes, it's probably not going to go well. He's 5'10". Like he can get himself open off the ball. He's like very good at relocating. I mentioned that in the transfer portal review that we did, that he finds ways to get open as like a cutter or in the handoff game and relocating after, he'll get the ball, give it back to the big, and then relocate, knock down a three. Like I think that's an avenue for this offense, but that's obviously not something that you can rely on. And we talked about Eaglestaff a little bit as well. Like I don't really love how his game translates, particularly on the interior. Like he wasn't even an efficient scorer at the rim in the Summit League. It's not. He's probably going to turn himself into a extremely perimeter reliant offensive piece. So, and in the front court, not a ton of creation. I think Laurent is a guy that can, give you some stuff in the high post and a little bit post up wise, scoring at the rim. But overall, I just think it's a little bit lacking talent wise. Like Jasper Floyd's probably going to start as the point guard, but he's more pass first. He's out there just to kind of facilitate and make sure things are operating smoothly. And even then, like he turns it over at a pretty high clip. I'm just not really high on him as an offensive piece.
Yeah, no. So we'll see. I mean, they're like we said, they're shooting pieces, but how they're going to get those shots, I think, remains to be seen. Shifting gears now to the defensive side of the ball. What do you see for strengths in this defense? Obviously, like Brennan Laurent, who we're both pretty high on coming over to West Virginia. I think he's going to make quite a strong impact on the defensive end, right? 6% block rate, 2.3% steal rate, 6'9", a little bit more versatile. What do you see on this defensive unit?
Yeah, I mean, this is the side of the ball that Ross Hodge teams are really built off. And, that North Texas coaching tree has really been built off. Like Grant McCaslin was there before Ross Hodge. He's a disciple of McCaslin. So they're going to do a lot of similar things on the defensive end. I just think there's athletes and versatility across the board for how like not so good Jasper Floyd is on the offensive end. I think he's a fantastic guard defender. He has the positional size and plays with a ton of energy and physicality. He's also had success in this scheme. He was at North Texas last year, had a 3% steal rate. So there's a lot of things that he can do well. We love Brendan Laurent, obviously. I think he's the best two-way player on this roster. Can realistically guard 1 through 5. He's an extremely good lateral mover who plays with a ton of physicality, can play some small ball 5 at times. He's going to be a fantastic defender. I think Chance Moore should make his mark on the side of the ball as well. Don't really love him as an on-ball defender, but the athleticism and the physical traits are there. And so Ross Hodge just needs to get him to defend at a little bit of a higher level. He'll be just fine. And like I mentioned, I don't love Obioha as like a defensive fit, but I think Jackson Fields at the 5 is going to be more of an interchangeable guy, and they can really create a 1 through 5, like switch everything, switch all the off-ball actions on the defensive end. I think they could be a pretty good Big 12 defense in the first year of the Hodge era.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like versatility is going to be huge. They have a bunch of guys in that like 6'4" to 6'7" range that I think and then throwing Laurent in there too, 6'9", that can all kind of switch a lot of things. Obioha is obviously he's an outlier to that. So I think like with the concerns of Obioha's fit here, I think it does like put a bit more of a question mark on the rim protection and the depth in rim protection on this West Virginia team. Like Jackson Fields isn't like he's not going to wow you, 4% career block rate. Brendan Lorient, as I said earlier, 6% block rate last year. But jump to the Big 12 now, and not exactly like a ton of depth here. You look at Obioha, who had a 7% block rate last year, but I would expect, his role to drop just because of like fit with the rest of the team. So I don't know if he's really going to be able to provide as much value as like what the numbers say he should be able to. And then the other thing for me, like while there is a lot of like wing depth and versatility, I do again worry outside of Jasper Floyd about the guard depth in guarding opposing point guards, guarding opposing backcourts. Is like Honor Huff isn't a spectacular defender, right? I mean, 1.5% steal rate, has never really made much of a mark on the defensive end. And he's undersized as well, 5'10", transferring up. I think there are some concerns there. And then like overall, the guard depth isn't fantastic. Like I said, there's a lot of wing depth and versatility, which I think can, like you said, is a strength. They have a bunch of guys that can guard a lot of positions. But when they play some of the best guards in the country, I do have some concerns with the overall depth of that group.
I would agree. And I think the depth is the biggest concern because Ross Hodge defenses tend to foul at a really high rate. In his 2 years, they were 305th and 284th in free throw rate allowed. And that's what his teams are built off. They play with physicality and they have a lot of athletes that can defend shots at a high level, but they do get a little bit undisciplined and they will give up a lot. They will foul a lot and teams will kind of make their mark at the free throw line. And if you're not going to have a lot of depth, that's also going to hurt you in other areas if you have to go deep into the bench. Like I'm not completely sure what these freshmen are going to bring to the table as defenders, but this is a Ross Hodge culture that like you need to be bought in on the defensive end right away, or else you're probably not going to play all that much. So depth, it is fair that depth is going to be a concern.
Yeah, I think so. Now looking at team MVP, team X factor for West Virginia, what'd you go here?
Yeah, I went with Honor Huff as my MVP. I think his ability to create perimeter shots on and off the ball is going to be a very important factor for a team that needs it, because I don't really think, not really all that high on Eagles staff to create consistent open looks for himself or others. So I do think Honor Huff is the mid-major transfer that emerges first, despite being 5'10". Like realistically, like I should have more issues with Honor Huff's game, but I do think he's going to find ways to generate open looks. He's super quick trigger with deep range. Like he's going to be, I think he's going to be just fine on the offensive end. And my X factor, I went with Brendan Lorient. I considered him for MVP just because he's going to do so many great things on the defensive end. But I do think he's going to be important for the offensive side as well. He's going to have to bring some sort of post-up presence to the table, some sort of roll man presence to the table for an offense that when Obioha is off the floor, they are going to kind of struggle to score on the interior. So I think Lorient's really important to this team.
Yeah, I won't go into too much more detail here because I went with the same two. Honor Huff, MVP, Brendan Lorient, X Factor. I think his ability to impact and guard multiple positions on the defensive end is going to be very, very important to this Ross Hodge defense. And likely like his ability to protect the rim a little bit will be important if Obioha is going to play a lesser role. So that's why I went there. But ceiling, floor for this team, I know Torvik projects West Virginia 10th in this league. Where do you see them?
Yeah, which I think that's a fair ranking for this team. And I do think there's a pretty narrow range of outcomes for them. I think the offense not being so great kind of limits their ceiling. I put them at 7th. I don't really think they can emerge as a team that is above like the Arizona tier. Like Arizona's like in that 4 or 5 range. Like Kansas is in that 4 or 5 range. Even Iowa State. Like I don't see them being any better than those teams. So I think at their ceiling they finished 7th. I had their floor at 12th or maybe 13th. I think their defense is going to be, their calling card, and it's gonna make it really tough for them to fall down to the bottom 3 if their defense is going to uphold them.
Yeah, I had the same ceiling. I just like you look at this league. I don't see them getting like Torvik projects Texas Tech at 6th, and I don't see them getting to that, right? So I think 7th would be where they're at their best. I said 11th. Again, I think it is, like you said, a narrow range of outcomes for them. I guess I could see them worse, but I do think they do have enough versatility and some shot makers to be able to be better than some of the teams that we really don't like in this league. Now, bold prediction here. Do you have one?
I do. It was the stat for Honor Huff. I think he leads all of the Big 12 in threes made, and I also think he leads in attempts. I just think he's going to have to do a lot for this half court offense for some guys that I have some questions about as perimeter shot creators. And like a guy like Jasper Floyd isn't going to be creating much offense for others. Particularly, he's just really no burst off the bounce. So I do think Honor Huff's going to have to take on a little bit more on-ball responsibility, and he's going to have to jack up a ton of threes.
Yeah. I went with another player's stat. It was a Brennan Lorient stat on the offensive end. I said that he's gonna shoot 34% plus from 3 on at least 75 attempts.
That would be awesome.
I think there is room to grow there, right? Like last year, 23 attempts. Year before that was 13. I think we can see a jump here. I wouldn't be shocked if he made something like 25 or 26 out of 75, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's more of he needs to take the open shots that defenses give him, because there were a lot of times last year where he was just left wide open and he just kind of turned into like a handoff hub. He just never decided to shoot the ball. And when he did, he knocked it down at what was it? Did he shoot 50%?
48,
like 11?
Yeah.
48. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I think it's possible if teams leave him open early in the season, he's going to have to knock him down.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll see what happens under the lead of Ross Hodge in his first year at West Virginia. But we'll wrap things up here with the Mountaineers, and we'll see you next time on the Mainly Hoops podcast.